I have no idea what to expect. Let's see what happens. We broke 100,000! We just hit for 109,000 damage! We just did 100,000 damage in one card. This shit was just 109,000 damage. No way this was turn 6. Turn 6? 100,000 damage on turn 6? 100,000 damage on turn 6. So, 100,000 damage in a singular hit on turn 6. How can you actually replicate that? And why is it even more impressive? That is because this boss has 5%, 15%, and then 20% damage reduction, meaning that it actually was closer to a 160,000 damage hit, getting cut down to just 109,000. Just, right? So, now that we have that, what does it take you? It requires a E09, E0 Orlea, and preferably the partner Alcea, though it's not a must to one-shot the guy. You can reliably get also closer to like 70 to 80,000 damage by just, by not having the partner. But these are the baselines, 9, Orlea, and the partner. Now, how does this whole thing work out? What were the key cards? So the key components here are Hue Extreme, which will be stacking to its final level, giving us 1200% base damage, making it the biggest and highest base damage card in the entire game, meaning it also benefits the most from percentage-based increases. Hue Extreme right here. And then also Counterblade in its Exhaust variant to allow us to stack 3 stacks of Honed Edge by exhausting cards in the turn, so that's then a further 60% multiplier from Honed Edge. And that's honestly all that you need for the 9 side of things. This is an item I'm still working on. I haven't yet gotten to work. I don't even know how it works. The other items here would be a Fairy Crown, which is not that important. You either crit or you don't. But it has a 25% increase to 2 cost or higher cards. And then also the Brilliant Eternal Flame, which gives us damage to 2 cost cards, and also if we own 18 or more cards, we increase our damage, as well as a plus 40 damage if at max HP. But this isn't actually the deck I used to achieve this, it's just my better variant. This was the baseline at 12% defense with 25% exhaust, and 12% crit with 25% for 2 cost cards. Again, also just featuring a Hue Extreme and a Counterblade exhaust. So that's it on the 9 side of things. Here as a quick showcase, the memory fragment, it is the old set, meaning we didn't even benefit from the set effect for the attack. It would be even more deadly if you have the new order set that gives you 30% multiplicative for any exhaust cards. So then for the extreme, so order set would, the second order set would make this even better. Potential is fully maxed out, but obviously you don't have to max it out if you just one-shot the boss. And yeah, as you can see, egos are no egos at all. So that's it for 9. Now let's talk about Orlea. Orlea needs, just 2 very specific things. She needs softies so that we can increase our damage amount, and we increase our damage amount by retaining, which we are doing through Growing Creature and also through Sacred Sensor. And then she needs spores. So yeah, my community decided to name this Orlea Sporelea, so this is her official Sporelea build. The key card is the Spore Harvester that allows you to create spores, and the important part here is the spores themselves have a retain effect that upon them being retained, they create another spore. So those are the contaminated spores, and then Wills of Light. This deck is by no means optimal. The more Wills of Light you have, the crazier this deck becomes. I'm still in the process of refining it, and also there are no really important cards. Like anything support damage wise, item wise would be better than this. Like for example here we have a chance to draw exhaust cards, which helps a tiny bit, but in the grand scheme of things it's not that important. And then outside of Will of Light, we also have the growth acceleration, which gives us vulnerable. Overall, growth acceleration can be whatever, but preferably you want the softy version, so you can also get vulnerable right there. So that is then all. So our gear for Orlea is super simple. It is just pretty much 4 random pieces of the new Glory's Rain set, so you can see them right here. The substats are really not that important, but if you're looking for anything specific, you're looking for defense flat in the substats, so for more healing, which is more like a general Orlea build, and then health, so we can obviously tank more hits, because we don't care about her dealing damage at all. Yeah, we even are using a blue piece in here, so those are all the pieces, and once again, she is E0. Orlea, and then as the final like key piece, as we already briefly mentioned it in the beginning, it's the Alcea partner and its ability to aim at 5 caustic remarks that further multiply the damage taken by the enemy, similar to vulnerability or the spores. So how about we go into a run, we do a run together, because there is a couple things you need to pay attention to if you want to replicate this, and there's a couple rules you need to be aware of to use this to its utmost. So here we just get ourselves a starting hand with Growing Creature, which is quite nice because that allows us to just cycle faster. This item, like our Ray deck, is completely worthless. It's pretty much whatever. It's really not necessary here, but I'm just taking what I can get. The deck pretty much, I mean, you can have a look at the deck, right? The deck clutters my team more than it makes space for, but if you're curious, we have an exhaust snack time. So now that we can use this snack time to draw through some more cards, just so we can get more cards on our hand, which allows us to scale this undertaking a bit faster. But the key pieces are still the same, and every card we get rid of is a card we don't draw in the future, so we just make sure we cut down Ray's deck as far as possible. A 0 deck would work just as well, if not even better. So then our mission here is to use growth acceleration so that we can get the Growing Creature already into a softie. And now it's time to count. So if we use a Spore Harvester, we get the 2 contaminated spores, which will then proliferate and duplicate themselves every time we retain. We can also use a Sacred Sensor, so we get another softie. And now you need to count. So here we obviously, we lose one of the damage buffs, but it's better to get these attacks out early rather than later, because we can still keep the vulnerability and we haven't yet used any softies. So what you need to count is, will your spores after duplication plus a Hue Extreme still allow you to draw 5 cards, so that you can still draw into more Orlea cards, more cards that can interact with the softies. So example here, we want to use 1 spore because this one is going to duplicate and these 2 stay in our hand, and obviously Extreme also stays in our hand. So we end our turn, meaning that now we have 5 retain cards, allowing us to draw 5 more cards so that we can use this to its full effect. So then right here we can use up the contaminated spores, get ourselves some more contaminated spores right here. So we can then also use these up and use the Will of Light to trigger the softy retain effects, as well as also again the duplication of contaminated spore, so we can start building up contaminated spore stacks on the enemy. And this is also the part where when you use the partner, you do not lose the stacking buff from softies, but you do lose the buff from spores, so you want to preferably use the partner as early as possible, allowing you to then build up more damage again through the spores. But here again we end our turn, so we count. We have 2 softies that stay, this one will be double, and we also need to always keep Hue in mind. So then again right here we have 5 cards in total, draw 5 more. And here we have the partner. So we're going to activate the partner. It's going to reset the spore stacks we already have applied, but then we can now work on applying these spore stacks, and we once again need to also cut a bit down. So we're going to get rid of one of the softies here. Also get rid of these attack cards just so we don't draw them again later. And so here we then have the Growing Creatures turning into softies, the contaminated spores once again duplicating themselves, cutting down our actual draw down to just 4 this turn, because it was 6. But it is at least worth it instead of losing the contaminated spores completely. So here we also just make use of gear bag. Once again, keep our hand, move over into the next turn. And all the while, all these softies start retaining, start giving us buffs that way. We once again stack another spore. Use our double retain feature on the softies so that we can start stacking even more of the softie damage increase. And then here we can again create even more softies. And we only have until turn 6, otherwise he's gonna kill us. So I guess here we're just gonna end our turn and hope we draw into a Will of Light, which is quite realistic. You can see we only draw 3 cards. This should be enough to get that guaranteed as a draw. So there we go. We now have this card out of the way. So once more we can use a contaminated spore, because if we use Will of Light, the contaminated spore is again going to double itself right here. So we have contaminated spores here to use. And also something that's very interesting is this boss has a debuff. Increases damage taken before taking action by 30%. So we lose out on another by 30% increased damage taken by attacking him right here. But we still, obviously, we want to like stay true to our word and do it turn 6. So we then use our softies right here. And here we can just use the last softie. We have our Hue Extreme at 7,700% damage. And once we put it on the boss, it's 29,839. So, because I accidentally forgot to show you the final buffs, this is the example from the beginning, the 100,000 damage attack. And the buffs are as following. We have one morale stack, which is completely irrelevant. We have the bonus of the Glory Reigns 4 set on Orlea, which is a 4-piece effect, making it a multiplicative 15%. And then we have ourselves a 685% damage bonus through retaining the softies. As you can see, we're doing like a stream review. And then we have 20% from the partner. Increase defense-based damage amount of 9's attack cards by 20. On effect activation, remove your quite high maintenance. Then the Honed Edge at 60% because it's 3 stacks, easily obtained through just exhausting 3 of Orlea's slimes at the end. And then Softie usage 140%. With the buffs on the boss being as following, you can see he acted, so he takes 30% less damage. We don't take advantage of that. Then here we have Caustic Remarks at 20% and 10%. I'm not entirely sure if we had a shield at the time, but I'm just going to assume we did. So that's going to be 30% right there. And then Spore Propagation at 40%, with obviously Vulnerability itself also being a 50% buff. You can see most of the boss's HP already being, reserved for a non-crit. So let's see if we can crit. 93,922. There you go. This is how you make it work. There's still a lot of ways to refine this, but damn. 9 out of 9 by 9, 109k, and even more damage in the final clip. Peace! Alright, so here is the final clip. We have this concept taken to the extreme, literally, with Hue Extreme at 9,800% damage, going up to 40,558 damage in this one beautiful singular hit. 128,000 damage through 40% damage reduction.